I have to admit, Candice, this has been very exciting for me to have you on here because one, I absolutely love everything that you do. And a lot of our viewers had seen you on the Today Show during the Olympics. And of course, so many of your wonderful cookbooks and appearances. Welcome to Beauty Uncovered. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I am chilling in LA. And as you know, we both were New Yorkers for many, many years. It's been a little bit more relaxing here. But I also miss the thrills.
Yeah.
And I
It's
miss
an
the
adjustment.
drive. Yeah.
It's an adjustment.
Totally.
It's a little bit of a different pace, but I do, you were saying like you miss New York. I was there a few weeks ago and it was just, I had that moment of just being like, oof,
I
like it's
know.
just the vibration. I love it.
I know. I agree. There's no other place like it in the world. I think Tokyo makes a close second, but even when I'm in downtown LA, Seattle, San Francisco, not the same. Yeah.
Do you get to go out to Tokyo much?
Well, we haven't been for 2 years now because of
Well,
the
yeah.
pandemic. I am not even allowed, even though half of my body apparently is Japanese. And I'm like, um, it makes you feel very grateful for the times that I've been able to go since I was 6 years old, 5 years old, 1988. And it's also like a bittersweet time for us to realize the beauty and the essence that Japan brings to the world and how they were able to still share during the Olympics so beautifully compared to any other country I've ever seen. I don't think anybody could have pulled off the Olympics and the Paralympics in a pandemic the way that they did.
It was remarkable. I couldn't believe what they were able to do. And it was so beautiful.
We should learn from these things instead of scrolling all day and trying to figure out who's more followers, whose ass is bigger, and who's got a new facelift during the pandemic. It's like, who fucking cares? Like, why don't we pay attention to culture, wellness, heritage, growth, education, love, philanthropy? I'm really trying my best to be cool chick, model, former model, editor, and still try to teach people that there are good people left in this world. And watching the Paralympics and the Olympics, it was so awesome, Danielle, because it brought your heart to that place where you said, like, miracles really can happen still, and there are good people left in this world.
I saw some truly jaded people even get their heart softened by watching it. It was amazing. It was amazing. I love to. I want to really dive right into a lot of, there's your career, which is, spans from all the way from Cordon Bleu when you were 22, all the way up to where you are now. Bestseller books out there. You've had more television appearances than I was looking at the list and I was like, I don't even think I can mention all of them. So your amazing books, obviously cookbooks. What was inspiring to you? Because in all honesty, I look at, like I said, with your career, as we are getting older, we look back and we think of, how impetuous we were, and the things that we did. Your first cookbook, you did that at 26. 20.
Yeah, crazy. And what was a side effect to being on a TV show and getting that one lucky break where they said, we're going to compile all the recipes from Cook Yourself Thin? I did not pick the name of that show. And P.S., when I was 22 or whatever, we started in TV, apparently that was cool. And the show was a huge success in the UK. We adapted Cook Yourself Thin in the US. And then when they compiled the recipes into a book, they said, Candice, you are very good at writing recipes.
Do you want to hear funny? I did not see the US version, but I saw the UK version.
UK version. Yeah. It's
years ago. I loved it. Yeah, I loved it though.
It's just the title doesn't work with the climate right now.
No. But it was still quality. It was still quality information.
It's horrible. It was like a little magic show, right?
They should re-release it. Just change the name.
I've thought about it a million times. And you know what is so interesting about food is, like, I never got into it because of food. I got into it because of people. It was the love of other people nourishing others and taking care of others being of great use. And the easiest vehicle for me to do that was always through cooking.
See, okay, I find that fascinating because I do know, I mean, I grew up from a big family. We had 11 kids in our family. So the cooking was usually like mass cooking, right? You know, it was big pots of things. I would only see on Sundays was when they were a little bit more nuanced in the things that they would make and make a roast or whatever. But otherwise it was like, did you get a meat? Did you get a vegetable? Did you get a starch?
Ooh.
You know, that was all you got. But when I think of cooking now, I do think it is very much an expression of love. It's an expression of giving. But even deeper than that, when you're looking at food in a nutritional, in a healthful manner and giving that as well, brings it to a whole different level.
It's
So what is your philosophy when it comes to all these cookbooks that you made, and what did you want to bring to the table that was different?
Well, that's a great question. When I did go to culinary school, I was so young and my mother discouraged me highly to not go. Her exact words were, "You can cook for your friends and you can never cook for a living. Me and your father, we paid for your college, so you can pay for culinary school on your own." And so because I was a fit model and a print model and a model, I had easy access to very lucrative cash where I could offset the cost of $50,000 for culinary school on my own. And at 22, I enrolled myself after I graduated. I got a degree in interpersonal and organizational communications at Long Beach State, which most people don't know. Philip Lim went there. Steven Spielberg went there. A ton of cool people like Jerry Rice, really random, went there. But Misty Day went there. We have cool people that went there. And I never thought academia was my thing. My sister was always a smart one. She went to Berkeley. I wanted to rebel. I hated the fact that like my parents did not think I was smart. It drove me wild. So I always thought I was dumb. Pretty much why I enrolled at a state school, even though there's nothing wrong with that, but a great education. And then decided that I would pay my way through culinary school because cooking felt easy. And it also felt like my college boyfriend was at UCSB and he lived in a house full of boys, like surfer kids by the beach. And when I cooked for them, I noticed how much they loved it. And it made them feel good. They were probably stoned and they just wanted to eat the pizza. But like it didn't matter because it was the whole experience that made me fall in love with food. So then I went to culinary school and
so when you went to culinary school, you saw yourself, okay, I'm going to go this because I knew, you knew doing that made you feel good when people were having that kind of response. Where did you in your head think, well, I'm going to work at a restaurant or I'm going to open my own restaurant? Or did you already see another path?
Great question. So because I had to fit into the tiny bikinis, I used to be a fit model means you're a mannequin, a live mannequin that puts on garments for various brands. And so I worked for everybody from Marciano to Habitual Denim, Chip and Pepper, whatever was cool at the time, American Rag, CK Swim, even like old brands that I think are out now, like Nautica. And what I found, even at like Hurley or Vans or Roxy, I was there for many years. I just found that if I balanced the way that I cooked in the kitchen at culinary school with the teeny tiny bikinis, swimsuits. Fun fact, I was Aloe's first fit model ever. I helped them launch their brand, which is now phenomenally successful. But I learned how to keep my body in prime shape while still cooking, which I figured was a lucky side effect. And then that's how I figured that it could be possible that I would be very good at teaching people how to eat well and also eat delicious food that was actually good for them. So my Japanese mom took me to Japan at 5. I learned about miso paste and umami, ume, all kinds of Japanese breakfast, and washoku, traditional Japanese food at home. And that sort of became my streak. So I worked at Roy's in downtown LA, which is Japanese Hawaiian. I think we made like $15 an hour, and that's like how much parking was. So nothing. And then I worked at the LaPorte or at the Ritz-Carlton in Laguna Niguel. Same kind of thing, like made $15 an hour, and also came home smelling like tempura and didn't care because I was so in love with learning and the process and education. And Instagram didn't exist. Twitter wasn't quite there yet. And I longed for those days again where people didn't give a shit about a number on your profile, but rather they looked at your talent and the true source of a human that had an offering to give to the world selflessly. And so since the climate has since changed, my passion has never shifted. It's always been the same. But unfortunately, the playing field is extremely unleveled now. So my talent is no longer in cooking, but rather in staying relevant, because that's sadly what the world asks of you.
It's very funny because I often think about social media and all that you have to, whether it be social media, public appearances, whatever it may be. You could be a passionate, amazing anything. But if you don't have a certain degree of passion for that experience of being public and putting yourself out there, you're kind of dead in the water, where back in the day, it wasn't quite the same. So how do you feel like is your way of combating that? Because I mean, you were like modeling. I mean, you did understand the concept of the picture, all of that. So is it really that different from that experience?
Well, it was difficult because I always felt ugly as a kid. And that's the truth. When you're half Japanese, half Polish American in a sea full of white kids in San Diego, and then there's a group of Hispanics that really like you because you're different, but nobody can figure you out. You do grow up teased, and the same boys that picked on me in second grade tried to ask me out in high school and later in college. And I was like, it was a mind fuck. You had to really figure out, who am I? And why is my mom Buddhist and my dad Catholic, now Christian? I don't know. But the sense of normalcy comes when other people share their story, which I think is like the most important thing.
Which is one of the great things about social media, is that you're finding a lot more transparency and openness about these things, right? I mean, back when I was a kid, you didn't talk about these things. You just didn't.
No. And when I came out with my first solo cookbook, Pretty Delicious, I was 26, and my publicist told me, do not show people your emotions. Don't show people your true colors. It was a different ballgame back then. Yeah. It's all good. I have no idea what the formula or the template is for staying extremely relevant. I have everything like as far as like a Rolodex, which is also a very old term, of like my resume is so long it looks like a scroll, like a Bible.
Right. I was going through it and I was like, good golly. Like, you must be tired.
Danielle, God bless the Japanese Polish genes. It's not that I'm tired. I think I am frankly bored, and I do have a huge amount of creativity to share with the world. And it would be nice if the show that we're working on right now does get greenlit, because it would be a perfect place for us to share the 17 years of me running my small business, 3 small businesses, and being successful. I mean, one dip financially came from the pandemic naturally, but regardless, besides that, we have exponentially gone uphill every year as far as income. And I think that's the best indicator that you're on the right path. Not that monetization is my driver ever. My driver is people and helping to improve their lives. And exponentially, the number of people that need help has also gone up. And so my greatest gift would be not staying relevant, but rather just being of really good use, so that when people say, like, I'm very broken, I need to put these pieces of my life back together, I'm not really sure how to do it, I'll read Candice Kumai's work or listen to her Wabi-Sabi podcast, and I'll figure my shit out. And it won't be perfect. You will get teased. You'll go broke. You'll probably have a million breakups, which is fine. I also have a Rolodex of men that I used to date, and I had to move on from that because it wasn't doing me much good. And so when I transformed my own life, I think that was my specialty versus the numbers game, versus the, I enjoy doing these kinds of interviews. I don't do them often. I really say no to about 90% of the work that comes my way. I'm very picky about what I do. I like to work with the 1% or the top 2% of individuals. And then I like to help. Like every Saturday, I'm at a church doing the food bank. And thank God for masks right now, because nobody will know who I am. But I find this beautiful love in just helping others. And I think, and I wish that instead of getting judged off of social media, that things would go back to how they once were, that individuals like executives, casting directors, and the streamers would look at us and say, holy shit, she's been an editor at how many magazines? She's written 6 books. She's on number 7. She's been on every TV show known to man. Give the girl a damn show. Like, I don't want to do a sex tape. Like, I don't think I should have.
No, me neither do I. No, I don't either. I do think that when it comes to social media, in my personal opinion, the ones that truly excel and the ones that truly resonate in the long run. I mean, you got the flashy ones and everything, but the ones that truly are the ones that have that weight behind them. They can do great on social media and take pretty pictures or do great fun videos and talk. But in the long run, if they have the depth of experience, I've noticed a real trend of people looking for education.
Oh, fabulous. Finally.
It used to be entertainment, and now I'm finding it's really starting to swerve off into education. They want to learn. So it is kind of interesting to see the pathways that what is it? The pendulum swings, right?
Oh, hell yeah, it does. I hope. I mean, if someone's taking notes, I was told somebody was taking notes for a long time. I think I have a great chance at having a lot of dreams come to pass. Mm-hmm. I'm not like counting on that. I expect nothing in return, which is one of the gifts I'm trying to learn while working at the food bank. I think our expectations are what fuck us up. And if we can just learn to let go of those, I completely agree with you. If someone's pretty, especially coming from being a former model who's still modeling at 39, it doesn't really make me say, wow, I'm so intrigued by this person. But if you're Mother Teresa or even somebody like Oprah, or I do like the change that Russell Brand has made in his career. He's awesome. Or the empathy that Conan O'Brien has with others on his podcast, or even Malala, watching her story and her heart. I see education also becoming something that we should learn to value, because we have it here in the Western world and it is not given to girls in other parts of the world. And if you just watched he named me Malala one time, you might learn to value the fact that education, although you hate sitting in class or learning, it's the one thing that is paramount to success in every single area of life. And instead of pretty pictures and a beautiful physique, like, your brain is what will attract the right people. I will say that. My current partner is a wonderful guy, and he didn't get me on the Today Show. He was like, oh yeah, cool. Like, not for me. Which is so awesome. And then he watched a documentary that I wrote, produced, directed, and shot all across Japan, and bled out my entire savings account for. It's called Kintsugi Wellness. It was for NHK. And then he's like, oh my God, while I was interviewing Nagasaki survivors, he says, I think I'm in love with this girl, but he didn't even
Oh,
tell me that until like a year and a half later. So sometimes it is about who the person is on the inside. And at the end of the day, you're not going to sit on your deathbed and say, fuck, I wish I had more followers. You might say, fuck, I wish I would have done more to help others in this one lifetime and be a reflection of who I truly wanted to be while improving this world as much as I could.
that like resonates with me on such a deep, deep level. And I thank you for saying that, because I do think that, it's so easy to get caught up in all of the hype and everything like that. But yeah, in the long run, you got to think at the end of your life, what is it that you want to be said? That if you reached a lot of people and you had a lot of followers, it's because you gave them genuine value.
Yeah, I know. I thought you were going to say boobs and ass and
Well,
yeah. The song picture that got 10,000 likes.
Yeah. I mean, no shame in anybody's game, but
I agree. I fully agree. I'm just more concerned about the longevity game for most girls, because I too was only paid for my body and my looks for many years, and they do not stay. They are fleeting. And if you think perfection is a thing, it's also fleeting.
It's so interesting you said this, because I was having a conversation with someone earlier today, and we were talking about the subject of like Botox and lip fillers and this, that, and that. And I have nothing against it. In all honesty, I often consider it. I'm 49 turning 50.
Oh my God, big yell. You look fabulous.
Wow. But the point is that I actually have the reverse, in the sense that the more I'm in the public eye, the more I feel a certain sense of responsibility not to do it, because there is absolutely nothing wrong with the aging face. It can be sexual. It can be beautiful. It could be all those things. So I always feel like, I kind of want to do it because I know my genetics, and like my father, I'll probably have my lips disappear in a few years. But there's another part of me that sits there and look at the world and go, that's not all I am. I'm so much more than that. And quite frankly, it's still beautiful. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I'm not complimenting you just on the physical appearance. I think you're wise. You get it. You listen to people, which is the greatest gift you can give to another, besides maybe one other thing. And I think that you also just are helping women, and
I hope so.
Is trying to make a difference in people's lives, and God bless them, because most brands don't really give a shit about that. They care about numbers and money and how they're going to make X amount of sales. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I've worked in every industry with you: fashion, food, media, publishing, TV, streamers, branding, advertising, sales, marketing, and entrepreneurship. And I do really find that educating women on just sharing our story might be one of the most satisfying things that we can do now that we're wiser. And that in itself should be a gift. The lips are cool. You can always, plump them with a liner. But it's like you do get to look at your parents and see what you're going to get, which is fabulous. And also a little jarring. Yeah. But
yes, a little jarring.
But don't be afraid. Like my mother and father are the most wonderful people, and they're in their 60s and 70s. And they're my favorite people in the whole world. I was
going to say, I also inherited my mother's wonderful quirkiness and my father's deep, deep goodness. So I'll take that too.
They're the best, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about, so we should probably talk about Kintsugi. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing right.
Oh, Kintsugi Wellness. Yes.
I want to talk about this because I do feel as though this is a conversation that can bring a lot of value to our listeners. I have a feeling it could bring value to me, because in all honesty, it's been a difficult couple of years. I was saying to you earlier, we all started this pandemic with like, okay, we're gonna buckle down, we're gonna do good. I'm gonna exercise more. I'm gonna start making food. Though a lot of it was banana bread for people. But but with that being said, the wellness part, I think after a while, because it is really complicated, we're not doing the same things as we used to. As much as things have opened up, it's not the same. I think there is a little bit of a disconnect with some connection to a certain degree that we have to really think about our own personal wellness, right? I think that it is such a priority. And I've said it many times because my mother has said it to me many times. There's a reason when the mask comes down in the airplane, they tell the mother to put the mask on themselves first, then the child. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't give out to anyone else. So what was your inspiration in making that book? And what are you hoping that people can get out of it?
In 2015, I started writing this book. I didn't want to write it because anything Japanese is very intimidating, scary, and I did feel like I would get judged. And it turns out none of those things happened.
Wow. That's great.
Floored, right? Your fear is what does stand in the way of your success. And it's always self-inflicting. My grandma was dying and was in Japan, and she's the matriarch of our family. So I flew to see her. And then I had a boyfriend at the time in New York who fucking did the worst kind of breakup. I'm fine if you want to break up, but it was like gave me 30 minutes and then got on a plane, and we lived together. And then this book came out the next day. And my book launch party was at the ABC Home Deepak Shopping Center. The story is wild. And I think, if God wants, I'll write a sitcom about it one day. It's very good. But it's also really telling for like being broken and putting these little pieces back together when I had nothing. Like grandma died. I didn't have a partner anymore. And not only did I not have a partner, but I didn't really know who I was. And by then it was like I had a million shows, books. I was an editor at Shape and Men's Fitness, now Men's Journal. I had been a columnist at Men's Health and Women's Health and judged on Iron Chef for many years, and then beat Bobby Flay, and then moved on to doing the Today Show and E! News regularly. And I just said, who the fuck am I and what am I even doing? So writing this book with the monks in Japan and taking myself out of the technology equation and really understanding who my mother was and what she wanted from me. And also learning about my father's devotion to my mother, knowing that like the kids come out looking Japanese, even though they're half Polish. Barack Obama is half white too, and he's Black, like we have to figure out how to all assimilate to these social norms and also at the same time, if they're broken and we don't understand them, we have to figure out how to put these little pieces back together. So in writing this, it took 3 years. My mother unwillingly had to help me to edit the entire thing. She's a Japanese language and cultural teacher in San Diego. And then I went to interview Nagasaki survivors and also Okinawa survivors through the war. And learning about my family and the survivors through the book and the documentary made me realize how very lucky we are to be living in this moment, in this super easy pandemic. I understand it has messed with our mental health and our wellness. I totally admit that I'm a bit mind fucked from the whole thing myself. But I also heard the stories firsthand of their entire bodies being singed and burned and then getting cancer and leukemia, giving it to their child and then their child dying and then being an orphan in an instant and hiding in a cave and watching their parents die or just finding their bones. Like, I don't think you understand the dynamic of war until you sit with a survivor. That's a real survivor. If you get to quarantine in your house, I mean, you are lucky.
Right. We're still
So,
surviving.
I think that endurance is key. And I wish more people bought the book because there are so many books out there on health and wellness, but there are very few on the lens of a Japanese American girl looking at Japan and the US and becoming that bridge. Because if you're like me and you're mixed, and you're Buddhist, Japanese, Christian, Polish, American, and you grew up eating gyoza and pierogies, or having a bakcha and a bachan, you might feel like you don't fit in and you're broken. And I think the book really puts a beautiful bridge onto the world of East and West.
That is the absolute truth. That is the absolute truth. So let's talk also about Wabi-Sabi, your podcast. I think, all right. So first of all, I love the name, but it makes you smile to say it. So I might say it a few times. So what was your inspiration? How long have you been doing this now?
Great question, Danielle. It launched in 2018. And because of my very open depression and anxiety, I only do it when I can, because I'm also a survivor of mental health issues like all of us. I just didn't start admitting that until very recently. The beloved Today Show that I've been on for a decade, they said no to having me on with this book twice, which was in 2018 a problem for me because it was my grandmother's legacy, like I told you guys, and it's a book about rebuilding you through difficult times and how to heal, self-heal, and giving you the tools to do so yourself. So instead of having my friend Ryan on with chicken nachos, I was insulted because I was like, well, I happen to think that matcha and miso in Japan are cool. So I had to hire a publicist, start a podcast, go back in there and say, this book is deserving of 5 minutes of your time on air. We got the gig. I started the podcast to explain Kintsugi Wellness. So Wabi-Sabi refers to things that are perfectly imperfect in Japanese culture. And I knew that if I truly felt that way on the inside, I should probably share it with people, because otherwise I just really do look like an Asian Barbie doll. And I'm not. I'm a real person with feelings, and I've gone through more breakups and friend breakups and jobs and apartments and shows and books than I can count. And nothing was easy. It was like running a marathon and only being able to get through maybe a fraction of the pace that I'd like to get at one day. So in order to share the work, I needed a medium that people would understand. And as you know, I used to be a host at Home Shopping Network. I understand that was at 25. I understand the value of showing you a matcha chawan and getting you to buy 30 because I'm good at sales. Why couldn't I sell a book? Why didn't people get Japanese shit? Oh, I get it. Like I need a different medium. So that's why Wabi-Sabi, the podcast, was born. And if you like cursing and you love crass humor, then it's your podcast. I don't mean to be so vulgar, but it is kind of who I am. And people loved it. I was shocked, Danielle. And so there are 59 episodes now. Sometimes my sister's on, sometimes Dr. Weil is on. You know, I do a table read. I have mental health issues that require me to keep my schedule lean as much as I can. And so the podcast is a gift to the world. It's public service journalism. It doesn't have any ads. I don't get paid to do it. I lose money every episode I put out, and it's fine. It's my gift to every young girl out there who needs a big sister.
So Wabi-Sabi means perfectly imperfect?
Yeah.
Can I tell you how much I love that? I always say like perfect is overrated. I'd much rather have an imperfect person than a perfect. I love that. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's a great terminology. It refers to a time in the war when the Japanese were overseen by the imperial government. And at this time, the lower class citizens, which would be all of us, they knew that death was around the corner. And when people were suffering at that time, which every single generation before us suffered tremendously. It's like a full circle when you know that generations in the past have suffered and struggled more than we have. It feels that we are comforted by a continuation of that suffering. But I knew that the Japanese people believed in Wabi-Sabi as a term that helped them to see that there was still a bit of light in the darkness, and to accept the fact that things won't always be wonderful, but we could also value the beauty of things that were foreseen as not so perfect. So for instance, people think that it refers to a teacup that has a chip in it, or a home that's been, weathered quite a bit, but still looks cool, or like a pair of Chuck Taylors. It's like things look cool when they get worn a bit. And that's the point of view that I try to bring to people, is that I suppose being Japanese and Polish, although my worst nightmare as a child getting teased, I mean, the roll sheet every first day of school, I get choked up over that because it was so hurtful when a teacher would look at me and be like, "What planet are you from?" to watching people appropriate Japanese things nowadays. All of it is so painful. But if I am able to express to you through the podcast, through my books, and through my writing, a different medium for you to understand that we all struggle and we are all suffering in different ways, the joy comes in knowing that there's a comfort where you start to see that, like, oh my gosh, we really are more alike than we are different. And I like seeing people when they show their vulnerability too. I think it's a blessing, and we don't see it enough. So I think, like, the mask, it has to come off at some point.
I'm a big fan of Brene Brown.
Yay!
Yes. And the power of vulnerability, daring greatly.
Cheryl Strayed. Amazing.
Cheryl Strayed. I'm writing it down.
Dear sugar. I'm eating my friend's matcha chocolate. She asked me to taste test it. It's so good. It's
yummy.
Called No More Sugar.
No More Sugar.
It's pretty cool. Okay, so Cheryl Strayed and Brene Brown are both women who are champions because they really go in deep. And you don't see many women doing that. The Oprah Winfrey Super Soul podcast is phenomenal because it opens up a lot of windows and doors to people that she's been interviewing for 20, 30 years that we get to hear now. And it's like, holy shit, this interview is from 1990. And it's so relevant because I don't think vulnerability ever really goes out of style.
And it's funny because it's something that we've had conversations amongst our own team right up to the executives about the importance of, like, emotional intelligence and really how it is undervalued in society in many different ways. And I also feel as though that goes right back to vulnerability as well, because when you're vulnerable, it is a gift. It is a gift. But I have to say, one of the things I love about, like, say, Daring Greatly is the fact that it is a juxtaposition between, her clinical that she did, and then those stories, those stories that she told, and it kind of pulls it all together. A lot of times when, women communicate through emotional intelligence, no one really, well, that's not true. I'm using absolutes. There's a lot of people that don't take the weight and value of it unless it has that, like, we can quantify it, and what I thought was fascinating, she tried to quantify it, but it was almost impossible to quantify. So yeah, I loved that book so much.
If you're willing to get, like New York, it chews up and spits people out. And it also tells people, like, get the fuck out of here. Or it will obsessively try to keep you, like it did to me, and wouldn't let you go. If you're willing to go through the gauntlet and take a lot of risks and try something new and move and do something completely wild with your life, you will have a beautiful and fulfilling life where you'll look back and say, I don't regret a damn thing. I often tell people, I actually would understand if I had to die tomorrow, but I would be sad that I wouldn't have accomplished the things that my heart really desired in this lifetime. But I would be okay with leaving because I know that I've done so much to give to others, as much as I possibly could.
So do you think that, with that being said, are you working towards the thing that is your heart's desire? Or you're not sure, you haven't like pinpoint what that is?
No, I definitely think that each of us has a North Star and an internal compass that keeps us going in the direction that we know we're actually supposed to be in. A lot of it is intuitive nature that you can't really turn off. I'm pretty sure that we're going there. And my wish would be for more people to start paying attention to those who have talent and education and offering versus really stupid people that don't have much to give. That is not a judgment. It's me passing info on from learning myself. I have found so much more value in learning from Oprah's mistakes, or learning from Conan O'Brien's career, or learning from Russell Brand's drug use, or even on my own journey, like I read Trevor Noah's book, and it was the most phenomenal book I've read in a long time. The first book that made me laugh since Skinny Bitch, my friend Kim Bar-Newman's book from like 10, 12 years ago. I love learning from people who have experienced life to the fullest.
Yes.
Who have chased like their dream, who have seen death, who have barely made rent, and who have had no opportunities come their way. They had to create every single one. So my only wish is for, I suppose, to feel contentment in my heart one day, because I'm still chasing something, and I need to learn how to be at peace with where I'm at right now, because as you've said, and many people have said, girl, you are already there. I know.
No, but I mean, I can understand the thirst or the hunger for something like a deeper meaning or deeper whatever. I often share the fact that, I was years ago not in a very good marriage. And I had 3 amazing boys, but I remember at one point saying to my then husband,
Yes.
I feel like I'm supposed to be doing more. And he was very upset with me for not being satisfied for the beautiful, what I had in front of me. And that was not to negate the beautiful children I had in front of me,
Right.
Never to negate that. But that doesn't mean you are satisfied with one thing. It can be more. So yeah, I get it.
Absolutely.
I got it.
Oh my God. And for the sake of time, sorry.
No, go for it.
Meeting after this, ask me anything you want. I was just gonna say.
Oh yeah, I actually do have questions.
Sorry,
I have fan questions, girl. I gotta do it, or I'm gonna have people upset with me. So I have a question from Colleen from Levittown, New York. She said, "Wait, hold on. What motivated you to try for Top Chef at 23, and what part of it surprised you?"
I remember we laughed about this earlier.
Because that's really young, 23. And you Cordon Bleu at 22. That took a lot of chutzpah.
It was Top Chef catapulted me into a different level, I guess you could say. I don't know how to describe this. I was in culinary school. Bravo had Project Runway come out as a huge success at that time. And then I was in intro to meats class, and I was studying for a test on a piece of paper. And this is a true story. When it was done, I crumpled it up. And the other side had a casting with Bravo's logo on it. And it said, "From the producers of Project Runway comes Top Chef." Had no idea what it was. First season, inaugural season. And to answer, what's her name?
Colleen.
Colleen's question, New Yorker. I love you,
New Yorker.
It was again the innate feeling of saying to myself, I'm going to try something new and follow my career path. It was probably more about the fact that it was a challenge and I didn't really know what it was. As the youngest person, I think, that was ever on the show. And it really did help for me to learn that people would be mean, people would be encouraging, people would be helpful, people would be discouraging, and people would be
jealous, maybe.
I suppose it was strange.
Usually the discouraging ones are.
It's weird, right? Because I never understood why two people in the house picked on me, and I was in culinary school. It was like, okay, calm down. Like, I clearly don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And if I'm threatening to you, you have some issues. That it taught me a lot. I learned so much. And Cynthia Sestito, the blonde who's Jay-Z and Beyonce's chef, her and I got to work together after. We're still friends. That show, believe it or not, was, isn't it almost like 15 years ago? It's like maybe even longer.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know the math on it, but I do know that I'm grateful for the people that discouraged me because they kept me going as a catalyst along with my own mom. And I think it's funny. People write to me about it every now and then. They say, Stephen who? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I get it. And it shows you in life. You can't be that way to people, dude. Like, it's too short. It's too precious. And I don't understand why you would pick on somebody who's so much younger than you. Uplift, share. I'll never forget the way people made me feel on that show, no matter how long it goes into history books. But I am grateful for the experience. And Andy Cohen and I really did meet when I was 22 on the show. He was at set. We thought he was straight. Everybody was like, who is that? And it was amazing. It was a great experience. Yeah, he's an incredible person. And the network has done a phenomenal job of reshaping Bravo. Holy crap. Did I know that it would ever blow up the way it did? No. But I'm so grateful for the experience.
Do you have time for one more question?
Yeah, shoot.
Okay. So I have Sheridan in Midlothian, Virginia. I'm in my early 20s and my palate is very limited from eating a lot of quick foods growing up. I think we kind of know. I know we had mac and cheese. How do I change my palate to enjoy healthier options? I know I have a girlfriend who has that problem. Like, she's so used to like that junk food stuff. And it's almost like torture trying to get her to kind of expand her palate.
Good question. What was her name again? Sheridan. Okay. So I think the easiest way to explain the human palate is, like, for me as a chef, I try to keep it as clean as possible by not smoking, drinking, or doing any drugs. But also, I got off of sugar about 9 years ago. I stopped because I had acne and it wouldn't go away. And I couldn't figure out, it was like hormonal, but I also think a lot of it had to do with processed foods and sugar. And so the easiest thing, this book actually has a cleanse in it, Clean Great Eats, that people love. And if you go through the cleanse, you'll be able to see how you can get off of sugar but still enjoy food. My specialty happens to be foods that are better for you, that taste amazing. And that is why I went to school, was I wanted to learn deeply about the human palate. And it was why I worked at so many restaurants too. I thought I needed to hone in on California and Japanese and Hawaiian cuisine, because that was what made me tick and where I was from. And now I get it. But it also, I wanted to make sure that people had access to these foods. And also for lower income, it doesn't matter. You can eat foods in bulk. Like, you can go to the bulk section. Canned food is totally fine. Frozen food is fine. but meaning like frozen peas and canned beans and buying oats or legumes or beans in bulk. Like there are beautiful things that you can do with inexpensive food. And I work with everybody from health core to wellness in the schools, or even the food bank that's at the church down the street here. And my heart breaks for those who don't have the opportunity to eat clean and fresh all the time. So if you have the opportunity to do it, start with some of my books. There's Clean Green Drinks and Clean Green Eats, and they'll change your life. We say that when you feel good and you look good, your whole life will just start to improve.
No, and I absolutely agree. I think that's very poignant, because the better that you're feeling about yourself in the long run, it affects every corner of your life all the way around. But I'm so grateful for you, and thank you so much for staying on for so long. We don't usually go this long, but it was such a great conversation.
I know we probably could go on for another hour.
I know we could. I could. But you have a wonderful day, and thank you again for coming on.
Thanks, Danielle.